Like I said in my last video, I knew that Rotten Tomatoes they were kind of behind in terms of the update and getting all these critics to come in and give their reviews of Sticks and Stones. Now let's go right here. So it's up to 29%. It went from 0% to 17%. Now it's up to 29%. And like I said, there's always, in this day and age, seemingly a disconnect between, and sometimes they agree, but there's usually this disconnect between critics, reviewers, and such that are professionals, right? The professional critics, the guys that are not you and I, but the professional top critics like Nku Kang, right? Top critics. It's a disconnect, right, between them and the fans, seemingly now more than ever. And with the Sticks and Stones, we saw some of the mainstream, media, like as far as publications, like leftist media. And by mainstream, I'm using that kind of loosely. Let's just say real popular ones. They were coming out against it, blue check marks coming out against Sticks and Stones. And it created this sort of Streisand effect, right? Where people were like, okay, now I had no plans to go see this, or I was just going to get to it when I get to it. Now I got to go check it out because it's making y'all mad. When you tell people don't do it like that, certainly when it's coming from those types, they're just going to turn around and go do it. And so you see that the score right now is 99% in terms of audience score. So both of these are more so, well, this is a reaction to this. I believe it wouldn't have been this high if these guys weren't off the rocker. And it's not just these top critics for Rotten Tomatoes. It's, just again, the Vices of the world and all those blue check marks that were mad at it, thinking that people can't get made fun of. Certain people are off limits, right? Even though Chappelle makes fun of everybody, white, black, gay, straight. And it was such a necessary thing in this particular climate. So I recommend it in that regards. So, yes, usually it wouldn't be a 99% audience score. But when you do stuff like this, a lot of people support it out of spite. It's just being 100 with it. But there's a disconnect, and that was the overall theme that I wanted people to take from this, is a disconnect from these critics. And it doesn't just fall into movies, right? We see video games, shows, just products even, where there's clearly agendas, unfortunately, certainly when it comes to more art stuff, based stuff. There are agendas, and it's almost because everybody wears it on their sleeve nowadays with the rise of social media, Donald Trump election, sending everybody off the deep end, right? Or into the deep end, over the edge, let's say that. So you got to take things and be like, it's hard to see if they're legitimate, right? And I wouldn't take it serious. Anyway, I would never take a critic in that regards serious when they say something is good or when they say something is bad. Now, I've always been this way, to be fair, and that I've never been one to take people's advice for anything. Like people say bad, movies that they hated, I actually enjoyed or I got something out of it, like a lot of the comic books, movies, even some of the ones obviously from DC. I'm just using that as an example where I don't really just take people's analysis seriously unless I know you personally and I know that you know what I like. So you'll be like, nah. Then it's like, okay, I'll take it, and it's meaningful. But just these generic critics, there's always a disconnect. Certainly nowadays more than ever, like this is disconnect. Certainly with things that are polarizing in a sense, they're not going to judge it fairly or objectively. They're not going to object, no matter if it's good or bad. Certainly if it goes against their core belief system in this day and age, it doesn't matter if the product itself was good, because they have an inability to objectively measure it. No matter if they pretend like they're doing that, they can't. They just don't possess that ability to be able to do that, and they don't. And they dislike things that a lot of people like. Like some of the reviews that, if you actually read some of these reviews, they're just completely nonsensical. It's like you clearly are offended at some of the things that he said, and that's it. Had nothing to do with how well the jokes landed, or even if you could see funny in it. It was just, it's offended me. Clutch my pearls. It's bad. So there's a disconnect, and I encourage you guys. Some of you guys probably already do this. Take reviews from these major publications. You gotta sort of take that with a grain of salt. That's probably not the proper analogy. I said this on my last Chappelle show, but you got to take it with like, yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, but I don't know, right? Because that's just how it is. It's just how it is. And these guys have clear agendas, and you got to take that into consideration when it comes to art. So I say, no matter what it is, check it out for yourself if you really want to check it out and come up with your own opinion. But certainly when it comes to these like big publications, like you got people from Slate and stuff that were reviewing this, when it comes from those types, like I believe, yeah, she's from Slate. You know, when it comes from these people that are being essentially propped up by these sort of major, again, publications, you gotta take that stuff with a grain of salt, bro. Just don't take it seriously.